Hey guys, it's me LT, and something that I am planning to do for y'all this summer is to go to a different historical site each week so that we can talk about how history is still alive and well. It's not in the distant past and it's still affecting us today. In fact, for many of us, history is something that is all around us. It's in our bodies, it's in our traditions, our cultures, but most importantly, it is in our backyards. Sometimes it's right beneath our feet. And so what I'm gonna do for this summer course, I've never done it before, is I'm going to go to a different spot every week. Hopefully every week, but most weeks. I'm going to go to a spot in St. Louis. And for those of you who are not from the St. Louis area, it's about 25 minutes from McKendree's campus. And so McKendree views themselves as part of the St. Louis metro area. And I live in St. Louis City, and so a lot of history is around us all the time, particularly where I live. And the site that I've brought you to today is a park. It's the second largest park in St. Louis. It is called Tower Grove Park, and I'll kind of give you a little spin around. This is at the entrance to the park. It is full of playgrounds, tennis courts, basketball courts, jogging trails. My friends and I, sometimes we come here and drink and play kickball because that's what 30-year-olds do on the weekend. You'll understand one day. But this is a beautiful park and a lot of people come here. There's weddings, family reunions, gardens. It's awesome. But also what is here is, if you look behind me, you see that very big statue. Well, right at the entrance to the park, because there's kind of the road where people come in, right at the entrance to the park is a gigantic statue of a man, and that man is Christopher Columbus. So something that we will be talking about this week is Christopher Columbus, his legacy, and what actually happened in the Caribbean when he came in 1492. And so one of the things about the Christopher Columbus statue that's interesting is, A, we are 2,000 miles from the Caribbean, right? So what does St. Louis have to do with this man? B, Columbus sailed for Spain, right? And we are kind of descendant of the British Empire, and that we became our own country. So why are we honoring this guy who was Italian and sailed for the Spanish? And the other reason it's really important is because it was built in 1884. Now, why would a statue on Columbus be built in 1884? Well, 1884 is at the beginning in the, I'd say, late 1870s, early 1880s. We're gonna see a large wave of immigration of Europeans coming to the United States. And these Europeans are from places like Poland, Russia, Italy, Slovenia, Slovakia, Greece. I know my family came at this time from Slovenia and Poland. A lot of people of these people are Catholics. A lot of them are Jewish. And so perhaps it was to say, this is the United States, this is America, and it was founded by a Spanish Catholic Italian guy, Columbus. Or perhaps it was to say, we want to look at kind of the exceptionalism of the American story. And that begins with what we claim to be our founding, and that is Christopher Columbus, right? And so after reading what really happened with Columbus this week's lecture, after reading about what Christopher Columbus did, right? About the pillaging, the raping, the beginning of slavery, that's not something we talk about in high school, right? And unfortunately, because it's not something we talk about at high school, we usually don't learn it until this class. In fact, I didn't learn it until my college experience. And students in my class always say, why were we not taught the truth? Why are we sugarcoating or whitewashing what really happened and making it seem like Columbus founded this land when actually indigenous people had been here the whole time, right? And so exactly where I'm standing today on this ground is the native home to indigenous peoples from the Sioux, the Osage, and the Miami tribes. So native peoples lived here long before Columbus came, and long before the French and the British and the Spanish colonized this area. And so because of the controversial nature of Columbus's expedition, right, I want to show you the sign that was posted out front of this statue. But first, let's look at the statue itself. So on one side, it says, Columbus, October 12th, 1492. And then on this side, it actually says, I don't know if y'all can see it. Hold on, let me turn it this way. Okay, now I'm just messing it up, so shit. Okay. Anyways, I don't know if you can read it or not, but it says, to the discoverer of a new world. So again, we're crediting the Western Hemisphere with Columbus, as if 100 million native peoples and their history did not exist prior to Columbus's voyage. Then on this side, it's interesting because it shows the French, specifically La Salle, and when he came to Cahokia in the 1680s and saw native peoples, and it shows him being benevolent and welcoming these new, or the natives welcoming these new explorers with open arms to bring them civilization and Christianity. And last but not least, on this side, we see his name. And so what I wanted to show you that this is alive and well, is most importantly this sign right here. Okay, so I can't fully turn my camera. I don't know what's wrong with me right now. I think it's because my phone is almost dead. But it says Tower Grove Park is a welcoming place for all. A commission has been formed to determine the future of this statue in the park. And so a commission has been formed with many different interest groups around the city to determine if this statue should stay. Or if we do keep it, what kind of things are we going to put to interpret that, yes, this is Christopher Columbus, but he did not discover the New World, right? And yes, this is Christopher Columbus, but he also had a very tragic and a very controversial history that not a lot of people know about. And so I do like that they have that sign on two sides of the statue, one on this side and one on the other side, in order to say, yes, we acknowledge we have the statue. And yes, it is incorrect in saying that Columbus discovered this world. And yes, we acknowledge that he has a very controversial past on what he did to native peoples and the Taino and the Caribbean. And so making a mention of it is super important. And I think that many of you might not have to look very far to find if there's something like this in your town, right? Is there something that is dedicated towards Columbus, whether it be a statue, maybe a street is named that, a school, a painting, something that says Columbus, right? And at the very least, if you can't or don't know of anything, perhaps Columbus Day, right? Columbus Day is a federal holiday. It's a banking holiday and something we celebrate in October. However, lots of states have moved to calling it Indigenous Peoples Day. And so no longer is it seen as a holiday to commemorate this man, but rather as a kind of, I guess you could say, significance and an honoring of the people who were actually here before Europeans came. And so, as we can see, people are jogging, there's like a family coming, so I'm gonna wrap this shit up right now. But if you are in St. Louis, come to Tower Grove Park, see the statue, talk to your parents, talk to your friends about it. And if you're not, see if you can find something related to Columbus in your own city or town. Because again, history is not that far removed from us. But for all of us, in our discussion boards post this week, right? Why haven't we learned about Columbus? Or when we did, why were we singing songs about him being such a great man? And why do we, in history, we either ignore the bad parts or we kind of swerve away from talking to them and only talk about the good, right? And so this is our first kind of week, so we're just getting into it. But feel free to share these thoughts on the discussion boards. And remember, how would you feel if your family was Osage or Miami or part of an indigenous group and you saw this man who is responsible for changing your culture, murdering your fellow indigenous people, and beginning what began the conquest of the world as you know it. And so all of us in this class, I think, all came from somewhere else, whether it be Europe or Latin America, Asia, Africa, and all of our families have different stories. When they came, how they came, do they even have a choice, right? But at the very least, none of us can say that our family is truly from this area. We are living on the land that was previously owned by indigenous populations. So I think that's all I'm gonna leave you with for today. Feel free to comment on the discussion boards, and I will begin brainstorming about where I will bring you all next week. So thanks for watching my video, and I will see you guys in the discussion boards. All right, y'all, have a good day. Thanks for listening. Bye.